Hi, welcome back to AI Rapid Fire, the podcast where we cut through noise and uncover how AI is actually reshaping enterprises at scale. So we have a long celebrated automation. We've been talking about automation for a long time, for many years. It's going to save time, cut the costs, and make the processes more efficient. But today, the conversation is bigger. So the real challenge is not just automation. So it's designing human AI systems that scale the intelligence, influence the decisions, and also even shape the culture of an organization. So that's exactly what we are unpacking today. With me, I have our guest. My guest today is Shivani Govil. She's a senior executive having worked in leading tech companies, and she's also invested in early VC startup companies and most recently at Google. She's a growth-focused product leader, passionate about leveraging transformative power of AI to drive meaningful business outcomes. So Shivani, welcome to AI Rapid Fire. Before we deep dive, can you give us a 60-second version of who you are, what you do, and what excites you most about AI right now?
Thank you so much, Kishore, for having me and for that introduction. As you said, I'm a growth-focused product leader. I get really excited about technology and technology innovation and thinking about customers and user problems and how can that technology be applied towards delivering solutions to the customers and users, and doing this in a way that builds and grows sustainable businesses. I've been working in enterprise software for over 2 decades. And since 2018, I have been working in the AI space. And I am super excited about the opportunities that AI presents to how we work today and how we could work in the future.
Excellent. So thank you for nice introduction, and it's a perfect context. So let's jump straight into the rapid fire questions. So my first question, it's all about the big shift in the market, especially the AI. It's a buzzword right now in the market. So when you think about AI in the enterprises today, we have moved beyond the simple automation. So how do you describe the next phase where designing human AI system is about shaping the decision, strategies, and even company culture?
Yeah, Kishore, that's such an excellent question. Because as you said, when we started with AI, a lot of it was around automating and maybe augmenting what humans do. As we look at what's ahead, AI brings tremendous power to help us accelerate and also amplify the human capability. And to me, that's what's so exciting, is this opportunity to accelerate and amplify. And to the point that you rightly mentioned, Kishore, it's about not just the technology and the products and the work. It's about the processes and how you work. And it's about the people and the talent and the organizational structures and the cultures. So it really is transforming and disrupting us in ways that is not just one dimensional, but actually spans every part of the business and the organization.
Man, that's such a powerful way to frame it. So what you are describing is not just efficiency, it's basically a cultural shift.
Absolutely. Yes.
So move on to the next question. There's a lot of buzz about co-pilots versus autopilot, right? In designing human AI systems at enterprise scale, what is the sweet spot between AI as the co-pilot and AI as the autopilot? Can you share a story, an example where, how we can balance that actually works beautifully?
Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize what is the use case and what is the impact of the problem you're trying to solve, and then how do you best apply AI in which form. Autopilot is good for repetitive, automated transactions that are very straightforward and simple. Copilot is typically when you have much more complex or one-of-a-kind type problems where you need human oversight to be involved. Mm-hmm. So a good example I'll give you is in healthcare, healthcare triage. Some of the low-lying problems, some of the everyday problems can be uncovered automatically through the AI. But when you start getting to more complex treatments or ambiguous cases, you need doctors to be involved in helping to solution it.
Right. So wherever the doctor is involved, it's more of a co-pilot because he can use co-pilot to get the answers or reference the previous cases. And the autopilot is basically where the doctor is not required, but it can actually handle the triaging and so on and so forth. For
Yeah, exactly. I think of Copilot more where you have the human involved and the AI is assisting the human, and autopilot is more where it can automatically run tasks and complete tasks for you.
Excellent. Yeah, great example. And when AI takes the right share of the load and the human don't feel replaced, but they feel elevated, right? So
exactly. That's well said.
Cool. So moving on to the next question. Designing for trust. So what is one design choice or a real world example you have seen that instantly builds or destroys the human trust between humans and AI systems?
Yeah, Kishore, that's such an important topic because, if you think about it, trust is built in trust is built in drops, but it can be lost in buckets, right? So one incident happens and you can completely lose trust on something. And a great example of this is in 2018, I was being used for doing recruiting and screening resumes. Now, a lot of this application was in the tech space, and the data that it had been trained on was based on a biased set of data. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, the AI-driven resume screening was biasing against certain populations like women. And so it was inappropriately reducing the likelihood of selection of women candidates. And that's one which came to light very much in public attention and really destroyed the trust of AI in being applied for this type of a use case. So again, very important to understand how do you make sure you're factoring in elements that make the AI solution trustworthy, both from in terms of bias, in terms of ethics, in terms of safety, and in terms of a number of other parameters as well.
Okay, and that's exactly right. Trust is basically not technical, it's emotional, and those design choices that makes all of the difference actually. So okay, so moving on to the next one. From efficiency to intelligence. So what is one real-time real-world example where AI uncovered insights that a human team cannot alone would have missed?
Yeah, this is actually where I was talking about right in the beginning, when you start seeing AI involving to be able to do more that amplifies and accelerates what an individual or a human can do. A great example of this is fraud detection. And, there's a lot of data that if you think about your financial services companies, if you think about your credit cards, for example, they're processing a lot of transactions, and there's a lot of data that for an individual, for a human being to sit and sift through that data, you may not understand the patterns or recognize the trends, but the AI can intelligently do that and alert you to fraud that's happening. And then immediately, for example, you may have seen your credit card company will send you a message when it starts noticing uncharacteristic behavior to say, hey, is this fraud or is this really you? So that's an example of where fraud, where the AI can really help.
Yeah, I get a lot of texts, on my mobile, and even myself when I try to use Amex or the credit cards. Hey, is this a transaction that you're trying to, generate, or do you approve this? When I say yes, then only it will. So obviously, there's a lot of AI behind the scenes that's actually going through the behavioral aspects. So it's very fascinating, and it's very magic moment as well. So, okay, so moving on to the next one. So, invisible AI movements. Some of the most powerful AI is invisible, right? I mean, just like the one we just spoke about. Can you share a time when an unseen AI capability transformed how people actually work?
Yeah, and actually, I think that with any technology, the magic of that technology or the sign of a sufficiently advanced technology is when it just happens and it's invisible to the user. And many of us have been using AI for years without knowing about it. Right now, there's a lot of buzz about AI and especially generative AI, but AI has been with us for several years now. And I'll give you a simple example. When you're on a site shopping, you are automatically served recommendations for other things that might be of interest to you. Those are all algorithmic and AI based, and yet we just have gotten so used to it that when we're shopping, we will look through these and take it for granted. Another example is when you're watching a movie on Netflix and it serves you recommendations for what's next. So that's a great example of something that's been with us for a while, and it's just become automatic and we expect it to be there.
That's a seamless design. So when AI, disappears into the background and, just makes, work smarter basically.
The danger of that is then you end up binge watching movies because you find more and more that line up with the selections that you want.
Yeah, and then you become addicted to it, right? So
yeah.
One after another, you keep, going for the series after series. So
yeah,
that's a good one. So, okay. So the next topic is human in the loop without human in the way. So how do you design human AI workflows so people add value without becoming a bottleneck?
Yeah, and that's the promise with AI, is that it's going to make things faster and more efficient. But of course, we're still in the stages where we're building and we're learning, and we have to build that trust with the AI systems. And so a lot of times it's very valuable to not just completely give everything over to the AI, but ensure there's transparency, explainability, and confidence that gets built up as you start handling tasks. Mm-hmm. So again, going back to claims handling, when we started using AI to build the claims recommendations, we always had the ability for the humans to review the claims and have an ability to override based on their intelligence and their smartness. And what we found is that 80% of the cases, which are more standard, so you think of like a simple fender bender or something very simple, those tended to be more aligned to AI taking over and running with it. But then when there was a complex case, like multiple fender panels being involved or big damage to the vehicle, it became really important for the human to come in to be able to analyze the discussions. So as you build AI systems, it's important to think about what are the facets that can be automated, and you have the AI take it over. And then where are those seamless handoffs that happen to the humans for another look so that they're in the loop? And that together makes your system much more efficient and faster at execution.
Right. And that's a right analogy. So humans should provide judgment at the right moments, not friction at every step. But I think my question has twofold. But some areas where we are actually actively implementing AI, people are also adding bottlenecks. They're also becoming bottleneck in the human in the loop or human in the way conversations, right? So how do we address that? I mean, people should add value, right? No, it should not be another bottleneck in the flow.
Yeah. It's a good question. And I think there's two dimensions to it. One is, yes, you want to move faster and you don't want the humans to be bottlenecks. And that's where, again, I think it's important to recognize what are the simpler automatable cases and where do you really need your humans to be involved. One thing that could be done to address that is create a confidence level. So, you have a threshold of confidence and you say when it's over, like, when you're 90% confident the AI is right, we're just going to let the AI run it. When there's a 10% doubt, you direct it to the human channel. So automatically you're sorting through what humans get versus what gets taken through by the AI. And again, it depends on the risk level and the impact and outcome by that specific topic. The other thing is that, as you start addressing and identifying and delivering more AI and more explainability and transparency, that itself builds confidence that then humans will feel much more comfortable giving the controls over to the AI.
Okay, excellent. I mean, that's really good. Thanks for clarifying that. So the next one is actually the skill shift, right? So there are a lot of skills that are shifting across the enterprises. So what is one skill the enterprise teams should master to thrive in a human AI ecosystem designed for scaling the intelligence?
Yeah, this is such a timely discussion because we're all living and breathing it and trying to figure out what are those right sets of skills, both in the enterprise, but also in, how do we train people? How do we educate people? I think the things that are emerging, one is being creative, knowing how to ask the right questions and seeing AI as a partner and a tool to help you get to the outcomes you need. And so, in the space that I was working at Google, this was all about developers and coding. And as we started finding the AI get better at the coding tasks itself, the job of the developer starts becoming much more around how they review the code and how they think about what are the areas where there might be security gaps or there might be trust issues. So, going from like pure coding and writing simple code to maybe more complex code and code reviewing and testing, like those changes we saw starting to emerge. The other part that I would say is it's also about how do you make sure that your creativity is sparking the new ideas that AI can help with. So an example of that I'll give you is when you think about a business like Airbnb. If you try to leave it entirely to AI to come up with that business, it's unlikely that AI could have thought of it, because who would have thought that people would be willing to go stay in a stranger's home and pay money to stay in some stranger's home without knowing who they are? But it's the human creativity and understanding that allowed that idea to germinate. And so those are some of the things that I think are going to be really important, is that ability to be creative, the ability to ask the right types of questions, and then use AI a partner or a tool to help you get to those outcomes.
I mean, I could not agree more. So it's less about tools and it's more about ways of thinking, right? So
yes.
Okay, so the next one is basically scaling without losing the human touch. I know we're talking about human touch all the time. That's a prime topic of the discussion, because we come across these questions a lot from the C-suite as well as the business leaders, especially in healthcare, retail, as well as in finance, because they're heavily customer oriented. So when AI systems scale across thousands of employees or millions of customers, how do you keep the experience personal rather than transactional?
Yeah, it's, one of the things that AI is really good at is getting the data and getting the answers and getting the information. Not all models are built to be highly empathetic and bring the human touch in. Of course, there are some companies that are looking at more empathetic models like Inflection AI. So the importance is that AI can ensure relevance at scale, and the human brings in the empathy and the understanding and the connections. Mm-hmm. And this is a space, you do a lot of work in customer support. And that's a prime example of this, where the AI can help get all the questions, can help get all the answers. But it's the human agents that are needed when there is sensitive or emotional topics, or, you're dealing with a customer that's extremely unhappy and has high emotions, right? So it's really that blend that comes together to help deliver the best outcomes for the use cases.
Yep. So that really resonates. So personalization at scale is really empathy built into the design. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah. Love that.
So the next one is the ethical tipping points. We've been talking about, ethics, AI ethics, and ethical AI and responsible AI. So have you encountered a situation where you had to pull back on what AI could not do because it crossed an ethical or, human impact line?
Yeah, I think this is ethics and human aspects are really an important consideration to keep in top of mind. And just because AI can do something doesn't mean that it should do it. And, one of the examples that I always come back to is the issues we've had with young people starting to view AI as an emotional companion and emotional support. And it's just not just young people, at all age groups. And there's a lot of danger of the AI taking you in a different direction, including we've had some incidents with the loss of life, which is really a ethical human piece that we have to be very mindful and careful about. So, that would be one example to me, is how do you put the guardrails to help make sure that it doesn't take people down the wrong path. The other one is, we talked about that example of the AI being used for resume screening, but it wasn't delivering the right results. So then you're actually causing more harm than good through the use of technology. So these are some of the types of things that I think have to be really importantly considered as you think about the ethics and the use of AI and where you should be using it versus where it's not appropriate to use.
Thank you for sharing that. So basically what you're talking about is restraint is as much a part of the design as ambition, basically.
And also not just trying to solve everything just because it can be done, right? Thinking through why and whether that is the right use case or not.
Right, exactly. No judgment in the scenarios. What we're trying to automate with AI versus what we're trying to handle with human. Okay, so the last question. So the 5-year leap, if you're recording this session in 2030, so what would you hope we are discussing about human AI system that scales enterprise intelligence? And what would you hope we have left behind?
So what I do hope is that 5 years from now, as we're talking about it, the AI is invisible and it's just working. It's another tool in our arsenal of technology. Because to me, technology and technology innovation is really exciting. It's how you apply it and what are the use cases you apply it towards. And then the second part that I really hope is we're going to be applying AI to help solve human use cases to make this world a better place. So as you think about some of the massive challenges we have with education, with healthcare, with climate change, we see AI helping us think about how to solve some of these.
Right.
For example, I've invested in an AI startup that's focusing on education and how do you take education and make it more ubiquitous. There's projects that I know are going on with the environment and climate and how do you make the electric grid more efficient. As you think about healthcare and solving, some of the health issues that are a big challenge today, my hope is that we will start using AI and being able to accomplish some of those major challenges as we look at 2030. And then to your question of what do we leave behind, I hope we leave behind the misuse of AI and put the right guardrails to ensure we're creating a safe, inclusive, and trusted and reliable way to use the AI technologies.
Okay, love that vision. So it's hopeful, but also practical, not just about the shiny tech, but about leaving the baggage behind, left behind. Thank you so much. So today's conversation was a reminder that AI is no longer just about automation. It's about amplification, amplifying intelligence, the trust, and the human impact across the enterprises. So Shivani, thank you for sharing your insights. And to our listeners, as if this actually sparked ideas on how AI could reshape your business, or share this episode with your colleagues. And because the future of AI is not a tech alone, it's a cultural. So I am Kishore, and this has been the AI Rapid Fire. So until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and keep building the future. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Kishore. Thanks for having me.